And welcome to the Citizen Report. I'm John the Shannon in North Carolina.
And I'm David Heller in Oklahoma.
Thank you for joining us tonight. This newscast, as always, is real, in-depth American. We thank you so much for joining us. And I have to say, wow, what a week it has been. I mean, we do this, David, is normally a weekly podcast or newscast, whatever you call it. And in 1 week, wow, my, have things changed in every department that we cover here. But we do want to begin first with some new developments about Tegna, one of the largest company, one of the largest owners of TV stations in America. There are a lot of developments there, and David, I'm going to let you just kind of debrief everyone on that.
Okay, so for those that have been keeping up with this situation, earlier this week, Gray Television, which owns 93 TV stations in markets like Cincinnati, Birmingham, and Charlotte, basically dropped out or essentially withdrew its bid to acquire Tegna amid fears of the coronavirus, which we'll get into shortly on that end. And then later on that same day, this company that is based in Phoenix called Najiffy Companies and the Trinity Broadcast Network came out in a joint bid, which reportedly offered $20 a share cash to make a purchase of the 62 Tegna stations. And then in late developments today that came out, Standard General, which basically was the start of everything that has, led up to this point, came out with the statement, and I'll just read this to you in full. Quote, "It has been 2 weeks since we commented on the obligation of the Tegna board to run a full and fair process with the assistance of independent advisors to explore all alternatives to maximize value for all shareholders. During that time, there have been numerous reports of interest from credible third parties in an acquisition of Tegna. But to date, Tegna has made no public statement regarding these proposals. Indeed, Tegna continues to publish investor materials that omit any references to these acquisition proposals, which present the opportunity for all shareholders to realize a substantial premium to the undisturbed market price of Tegna common stock." And then Mr. Kim continued on, quote, "Consistent with its fiduciary responsibility to maximize the value of shareholders' investment, we expect the Tegna board to pursue these offers vigorously. We expect Tegna to give interested third parties access to due diligence to enable those parties the opportunity to develop their offers for the company. In light of challenging market conditions, Tegna should be open to creative structures and financing solutions that will maximize value and certainty for all shareholders. Standard General remains ready to work with Tegna to help thoughtfully evaluate all alternatives. However, if the Tegna board takes actions that discourage or create obstacles for credible third parties, we will hold the board and its advisors accountable." Close quote. So Jonathan, that is a lot to digest with this news, for sure.
Absolutely. I think, and we've kind of called this already, but I think that Tegna is going to be sold or taken over, but I think they're going to want to go on their own terms, which means they're going to be sold. I think the days of Tegna as in its current form, if not in its entire existence as a company, their days are numbered. And I think it's interesting, and we should go. And I'm going to go back and take viewers back to something you mentioned during what you were saying about Trinity Broadcasting Network. That's better known as TBN. and that's one of the biggest Christian networks in America, TV networks, that is. And I'm not gonna say the name of the website, but I'll just say there was a certain website, a forum, if you will, where people were just blasting TBN. I mean, they were just mortally in shock almost, that like Trump derangement syndrome kind of shock, that that a Christian broadcaster would be looking to buy Tegna. Um, I don't know about you, David, but personally, I don't mind. I wouldn't mind seeing a Christian broadcaster owning one of the biggest companies, because I think it's about time that we start to have more independent owners come into the fold here. Don't you agree?
I agree. I mean, I think TBN is doing the right thing and is doing the smart thing. You know, they're partnering up with this Phoenix-based company called the Jiffy Companies, and for those that don't know who the Jiffy Companies is, that's the company that has a minority stake in the NBA's Phoenix Suns and owns several different things out there. I'll just put it to you that way. And I think it would be awesome if somebody else besides Bonneville, which for those that don't know who Bonneville is, that's the one that owns the KSL stations in Salt Lake City, Utah.
They're Mormons. They're Mormons. We should clarify that. But I'm saying, but let's but to draw it back to TBN, of course, Bonneville are Mormons, but TBN is TBN is a Christian TV network, and I think that TBN, especially since 2016 and later, they have come into better leadership. I think, they have made better choices. And I'll just say this, David, I'm impressed with a lot of the content they put out. They even have like this historical show that focuses on hidden historical facts for America. Like they were talking about how George Washington, well, I don't know if it was George Washington, but they were talking about, Abraham Lincoln, because a lot of people say that Abraham Lincoln wasn't really a Christian, and they were saying, well, yeah, and later in life he said this, he said that. It was just really interesting stuff, and I think TBN has very strong programming right now. There's no perfect network, of course, obviously, but I think overall, compared to a few years ago, I think TBN is a much better position now. So to see them put in a bid for a company like Tegna, it's going to be quite interesting. Now, do I think they're going to get all TBN or all Tegna stations? Probably not. And I can imagine they probably don't expect to get all the Tegna stations anyway. But I can imagine this puts the signal out there that we're willing to buy a number of stations at least. Now they could be going all in. I mean, who knows? But because I can't read, I don't know exactly what their rationale is, but I can assume that, oh yeah, they're absolutely serious. And I can assume any stations that's legally required, or at least prudent to sell to another buyer from the original buyer, if you will, I can imagine TBN gets those.
I agree. I think if nothing else, and somebody I won't mention suggested to me earlier that Tegna could perhaps, sell, the stations kind of in a piecemeal way. So it's possible that, Najiffy and TBN could still perhaps get some of the Tegna TV stations that way. So
I agree.
Anything right now, I think at this point is possible. But one thing I think we all can agree on is that Tegna, at minimum, in its current form, is not going to survive past 2020.
I agree. I agree. I think Tegna's on the way out. I think that and I go back to what I said earlier. I think it's about time that the mainstream media gets more independent players. And I think we're seeing, David, is basically the media become less concentrated, if you will, and we're seeing more alternative media, independent media people coming in and becoming the mainstream. Of course, TBN's, they're by all means a major TV network. I'm not implying they weren't. I'm just saying that we can't underscore enough how big. I mean, Tegna is a huge company, and they've got markets in the majority of states. I wouldn't say every state, obviously. They're not in every state, but they're in so many places that from coast to coast that this is a huge thing. It really is.
Right. Absolutely. And when we talk about independent companies, obviously we could even include somebody like Apollo, for instance, who last year bought the majority control in the Cox Media Group, which is a much smaller company compared to Tegna. But the point here is very valid in that I think we're starting to see more and more of these companies like the Apollos, like the TBNs and the Najiffys of the world, coming in. And, at this point, Jonathan, I think there's no better time than now for those companies to start looking into buying TV stations again, especially as traditional media companies like Gray and Meredith and Scripps are pretty much handicapped right now because of the situation with the stock market plunge that has been going on for the last couple of weeks. Yeah. And for those particular companies I just referenced, like Meredith and Scripps, Gray dropping out of the running for Tegna did not help. If they had any prospects of buying Tegna at all, that was certainly destroyed by Gray leaving the race.
But let's broaden this out a little bit. Let's back up to about a 30,000. Let's just take a look at basically like a 30,000 foot view of everything broadcasting wise. Not just Tegna, but everything. Mm-hmm. I think we're seeing, people's trust in the media is at an all-time low. It really is. I mean, it's in the gutter. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, who actually sits down and watches a 30-minute evening newscast and trusts everything that's said? Not very many people trust everything that's said, even if they may watch it. But my point being is that I think we're seeing the big players of yesteryear. They're starting to leave. Like, I wouldn't even put it past some of these, like the big networks. I mean, look at Fox. Say what you want about Fox, but until before this last year, basically, they were this huge company. Now Fox is this very lean sized company in comparison. And of course, 20th Century Fox went over to Disney. My point being is that I think that in the future, it's very possible we're going to start seeing independent people that you wouldn't imagine being in the mainstream. They're going to start becoming the mainstream. I think that's why Q says we are the news now. In other words, the mainstream media is no longer the news like it once was. It's becoming independent, alternative people that are coming into the fold and becoming when I say coming to the fold, I mean they're becoming the mainstream. You see. And I think that if Tegna, even if just a small sliver even if that a small sliver went to TBN, I think that's highly indicative of the fact that there are more independent people that are starting to basically kind of slowly creeping into the mainstream status.
I agree. And I think you would probably also agree that I think it all started last year when Apollo took on the majority stake or the majority control in the Cox Media Group, which owns 13 TV stations, including in markets like Tulsa, Memphis, Atlanta, and Orlando, and in Charlotte, and just combine it with Northwest Broadcasting, which owns a much smaller chain of stations. And I think, Jonathan, going forward, we're going to see more and more of these companies like the Apollos and such of the world, start buying TV stations and become, as you mentioned, that mainstream media.
Exactly. I think that Tegna is. I don't think it's going to end with Tegna. I think you're going to see other companies as well. And I just want to say one more thing. Again, at that proverbial 30,000 foot view, so to speak. I think that, people want to get mad at companies like Sinclair Broadcast Group because they have they'll say a right-wing agenda or whatever. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous that, what people say about Sinclair. And of course, they'll mock TBN because TBN is a Christian network. And I'll just say this. I wonder why it is they don't seem to have a problem with the likes of CNN, ABC, openly caught pushing fake news and fake footage, or, manipulated footage. Why don't they have a problem, hold their own to account, and yet want to bash the people like Republicans, conservatives, and Christians, basically the outsiders? Why are they bashing us if I just don't get the rationale, David. I really don't.
I just think that in general, I think liberals are just hypocrites. There's no other way to put it. They say one thing, but say another. It's just pretty simple. And a good example is what you just said. They probably won't bash CNN or CBS or NBC or ABC for their fear-mongering, their fear-mongering of the coronavirus coverage. But when somebody comes on and says, oh, let's calm down, let's report the facts and everything, we just have to attack them. It's just... Exactly. Jonathan, it's just... This is just ridiculous. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah. I can't wait to get to the COVID-19 stuff because I got a lot to say there too. But before we do, is there anything else you wanted to say about Tegna?
Nothing at this point other than all I say for viewers is if you can, go to your grocery store, grab a box of popcorn or two and just
well, that's it. There's anything left on the shelf. It's just everybody's gone there and done an open raid of the grocery store everywhere.
Mm-hmm. But my point being is this: just grab a popcorn and enjoy the show.
Exactly. Just like Q would say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Alrighty, let's get on to COVID-19, better known as coronavirus. Oh my goodness. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about there. And David, I'm just going to let you say what you want to say with that first, and then I'll start talking, okay?
Okay, so basically, this week, to no one's surprise, cases have gone up across the U.S. I think now... at this point, here in the U.S. is at least close to 20,000 cases nationwide. Italy has surpassed China in terms of the amount of deaths. And a lot of experts are pretty much coming out and saying, oh, we have to prepare for such a long time of social distancing and things like that, which, I don't think it's going to probably last 18 months is what they're saying. It could last, maybe half that at most. But this whole thing overall is just, the whole mainstream media in general has just gotten out of hand. And it's even gotten to the point where even I had started turning off the TV news because of so much fear-mongering that is going on over this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's fear-mongering, and yet I'm not gonna say her name, but let's say she's a local news anchor in the middle of the country. You and I both know exactly who I'm talking about, but I'm not going to say it because, frankly, I'm not here to bash people. I'm just here to report facts, and what people need to know. But I just want to say, the media wants to say, how dare you question us? We're just giving you the facts. We're not fear-mongering. And I'm like, the heck you're not. People are at the grocery stores buying things out and fighting over toilet paper. I mean... it's like if they didn't get that idea from the media, I'm at a loss to tell you where they got it from, because I'll tell you what, I have never seen anything like this, and I just want to say something. I just want to say something to our audience. If this virus was the worst on the planet, explain to me how the H1N1, was far more deadly, far more wide-reaching, and yet the media mentioned it but didn't play it up on an epic level. They really didn't.
Exactly.
And Obama certainly didn't do as much as Trump does. And by the way, I think Trump's doing a fantastic job, if I may say. I think he's taken very measured responses. He's not going over the top like some of these governors are. He's just very measured. He says, okay, we're going to close the border. We're going to say you can't come in or go, you can't cross the U.S.-Canadian border unless it's an essential reason. He shut down the flights for 30 days between pretty much all of Europe, I guess, at this point. But the Governor of California shut the whole state down except for essential purposes. The whole state. The whole enchilada. And then also, I just want to read this. This is on, I think, Twitter. This guy has an excellent point. I follow this guy on Twitter. If you don't, you might want to. His name is, I don't know if it's pronounced Chiz, but C-H-I-Z. His handle is at Chiz, C-H-I-Z, MAGA, so C-H-I-Z-M-A-G-A. He said this just today, this morning, quote, "We still need 600,000 new cases per day for the next 90 days to reach H1N1 levels." Now, folks, just stop and picture that for a second. He's saying for the next 90 days, you need a sustained new case amount of 600,000 for the next 90 days for it to be as bad as H1N1. And yet the media is playing this one up far more.
I agree. And also in the late developments, Governor Cuomo of New York has basically shut down the whole state except for essential personnel.
Yeah.
And the governor of Illinois has also put the whole state on lockdown as well.
Exactly.
And, this is... and also on top of that, we are now at a level 4 issuance as far as travel ban is concerned, or however you want to call it. So pretty much that means, you can no longer travel abroad, pretty much.
Yeah.
Is essentially
and
what
that's actually a good way to to do it, because that does contain it to some extent, but it's not over the top by any measure. That's just prudent. But I will just say, let me pull up my phone. I should have had this up. Hang on a second. I have it. There we go. So this was, I believe, just today. An NBC reporter, basically, this is NBC's Peter Alexander asked President Trump this question, quote, and this just tells you how ridiculous the media is anymore. Quote, "What do you say to Americans who are scared now? Nearly 200 dead, 14,000 who are sick, millions, as you have witnessed, who are scared right now." Well, and I'll just stop to ask, yeah, and I wonder who's scaring them. Let me continue. Quote, "What do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared?" This is what Trump said, and boy, was this savage. Quote, I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say. I think it's a very nasty question, and I think it's a very bad signal that you're putting out to the American people. The American people are looking for answers, and they're looking for hope. And you're doing sensationalism. The same with NBC and Concast. I don't call it Comcast. I call it Concast, for whom you work. Let me tell you something. That's really bad reporting, and you ought to get back to reporting instead of sensationalism. Let's see if it works. It might or it might not. I happen to feel good about it, but who knows? So that was some of what Trump said, and I think that was an absolutely savage response. Well deserving, in my opinion, David.
Exactly, and honestly, I think Trump has every right to feel, that way, because this whole thing has gotten out of hand. I mean, it's gotten way out of hand to the point where, now in 3 states, you can't even go outside, or at least in two
Yeah.
of them, you
Oh,
can't
yeah.
even go outside.
Oh yeah, and I don't live in I live in the Charlotte metro area, in not in the county where Charlotte is, but in the neighboring county called Gaston County. And but in Charlotte, which is in Mecklenburg County, that health department director there basically threatened to put their county down on lockdown, basic, or excuse me, not a lockdown. There's a distinction, but a shelter in place order. Now she hasn't done it yet, to my knowledge, but she was threatening it because it's the case amount is growing more than she would want it to. And I'm thinking, first of all, how the world does one person get the right to tell people what to do? Because the Constitution, first of all, gives you the right to travel, gives you the right to free speech, the right to assemble, which kind of goes against these orders, in my opinion. But my point being is this, because I digress. But my point being is this: what if I decided to go see my friend who lives like the next county over past Mecklenburg? What if I decided I wanted to get in my car and do that, but I had to get on the interstate, go through Mecklenburg County? Are they going to pull me over and arrest me or give me a ticket? I mean, seriously, how far do they want to take this?
I mean, good grief. All I gotta say, Jonathan, is this has just gotten ridiculous. And
Yeah.
and this is yet another example of city government thinking that they have the power over the state. And another example is in New York, where Mayor Bill De Blasio, if I said his name right,
I
threatened
think you did, yes.
threatened to shut down New York City. And Governor Andrew Cuomo, a Democrat no less, basically told Mayor Bill de Blasio that you cannot shut down the city. Period.
Yeah, doesn't that tell you something, even when a Democrat kind of acknowledges, you know what? Yeah, you're taking it too far. Now, of course, we know that since then the governor has put in an order to kind of make it where it's only essential businesses that can stay open, if I understand that right.
Yeah.
But he didn't even seem to take it quite just a little bit less as far than the California governor. And by the way, can I just say, folks, every time I see that Governor Gavin Newsom, I just cringe. Like, he reminds me of a character in The Godfather. Like, he looks like an absolute mafia leader. He really does. I mean, the guy's absolute. I mean, he is absolutely corrupt. And he said, "Oh, we're gonna do an order. I think people know they got to do more." And I'm thinking to myself, buddy, you don't have any right to tell me the time of day. Let me tie this all up here. Let me say this. We're not saying that there's not, excuse me, I don't want to use a double negative. We're not saying that there is a complete lack of a threat. There is a threat. Every virus is dangerous. There's always a danger to a virus, okay? But you have to understand perspective. You have to understand there are levels of severity to this. And the level that H1N1 was on a level that we haven't even reached close to. Not even close.
Uh-huh.
And yet they're playing this up on a far bigger scale. In my opinion, they're trying to make Trump look bad. I don't think it's working because everyone is actually kind of coming together. That is, average Americans are generally coming together, kind of putting the politics aside right now, and just kind of getting through this right now. But the media, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? They like to say Trump hasn't done this, Trump hasn't done enough, and it's just like, I don't know. And let me say this too, to add to the fear mongering part of this. I was watching Fox News at about 1 a.m. this morning, and now Fox News is doing. By the way, in case you guys don't know, Fox News. I'm in Eastern time. They normally conclude live coverage of the day at midnight, and then they resume at 4 a.m. So the 4 hours they're running reruns from shows earlier in the evening. Well, right now they've now doing coverage around the clock, but from I think it's 1 a.m. here to 4 a.m. They have a guy, I think his name is Trace Gallagher. He's anchoring from their Los Angeles bureau. And they had a graphic up on the screen, and this was so insane. It said, and I kid you not, it said something like this: a nation on life support.
What?
Like, yeah. They said a nation on life support. Either that, it was either that or that was the message. That was what they were saying about us, and I'm thinking, now, if that doesn't prove that they are fear-mongering and trying to play this up, I don't know what is. Because there is a thing called giving you the facts and say, okay, X number of people have gotten the coronavirus, X number of people have died, and then you can break down in percentages, with all these statistics and everything. That's facts, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But when you play it up and use inflammatory language like that, that's a problem. I have a huge problem with that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's just gotten to the point where I think it's past time that everybody turns off the news, finds something better to watch or
Amen. Amen. I'm really to the point. I watch the news because I have to stay informed of what the broadcasting is doing, industry is doing.
Same.
I have to do it enough, but even I have to watch it. Because yesterday, folks, I'm going to be honest with you, my blood pressure was up because even I was feeling it. And I just have to remind myself, this is what they want you to feel. And yet when you ask them, they're like, oh, we're not fear-mongering, we're just giving you the facts. I'm not buying it.
No.
I'll call bullcrap on that.
BS.
But
or as Judge Judy would say, that's baloney.
Yeah. There's all kinds of memes and all kinds of funny sound bites from that show, by the way, I'll add. But we'll keep you advised, folks, and we'll just say we're not gonna be irresponsible here and tell you to completely disregard this, because I do think that people down at spring break, that's stupid. Okay, that's stupid. But then again, it's stupid anyway. I mean, they get together, they get drunk and all that kind of stuff, but it's not unique. It happens every year, but the media wants to act like it's, the first, I don't know. It's just the media needs to report the facts and what's going on and then keep emotion out of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But we'll keep you advised, folks. If you're the elderly, if you've got a compromised immune system, probably best to just play it safe and do stay inside or minimize your exposure outside. If you're young, if you are, if you've got a good immune system, try to take good vitamins, eat, folks, I'm not eating right. I'm not being a hypocrite right now. I don't eat right now. But I will say that is the thing that's good to do, and that is to eat right. But, don't put your entire life on hold unless if you're required by law, unless they tell you you will be arrested if you leave your house, that kind of thing. If you're in an area that's okay, then, just don't live in fear. Just try to go on with your life, but don't do anything stupid. Just wash your hands. Don't, do anything that will, make your chances of exposure that high, but just trust it, leave it in God's hands and go on with your life. Don't let the media make you think you're about to die from a nuclear bomb or something, So
Exactly.
So we will keep you advised on all this, of course, and there's just so many developments. We can't even cover it all. We're just kind of picking narrow strands from these topics, if you get my drift. But let's shift gears once again to talk about weather, because we do have a lot to get to with that, and we do have some confirmed tornadoes earlier this week. And I just want to tell you about one that happened just last night, actually in my very close to where I grew up. In fact, and actually even closer than that to where one of my friends lived. And I was concerned enough, I actually messaged him to make sure he was okay, and he was. But this was there was an EF2 tornado last night at around 6:50 p.m. local time. This was in Boone County, Arkansas, to the south of the city of Harrison. This was 1 mile northwest of Duggar, and it also impacted an area of Marion County. And basically, a woman's house was damaged. A number of buildings were damaged. And my understanding, and I'm going off of memory here, but there was one woman that was injured. I don't know of any fatalities, thank goodness. And I believe also David, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was another tornado, or I don't know if it was the same one. I assume it was probably a different one because it probably lifted. But
That was from the same storm.
So same storm, but probably different tornado. It probably wasn't on the ground that entire time. But we do know that from Boone County to Marion County, there was a tornado, and there was another one in Baxter. Do you know the scale of that one?
It was an EF1, and that was from the same supercell that started out not too far from Sallisaw and Poto, Oklahoma, down in the Sequoia and LaFleur counties in eastern Oklahoma, and it's a very beautiful part of the state, by the way, for those that don't know. And then it tracked across the Fort Smith metro area, prompted a tornado warning for the Van Buren and Alma areas, and then progressed northeast across the Ozark Mountain Forest, and then on the other side of the mountains in Marion, Boone, and Baxter counties, that was where it produced those confirmed tornadoes. And then there was apparently another tornado reported in Van Buren County, not too far from Clinton, Arkansas. We don't know of the EF scale. At this time, the National Weather Service in Little Rock is still surveying everything as of this recording. We will keep everybody up to date on that situation, and as soon as we get the information, we will update that after this podcast is released on that one.
Right. And to add to that, by the way, folks, Clinton, Arkansas is where a really bad tornado came through. And I want to say, David, I'm going off of memory here, 2008.
That was during the Super Tuesday outbreak of 2008.
Yeah, so anytime I hear about a tornado in that area, obviously I'm a little more sensitive because obviously I never like to hear, I don't want to hear a tornado hitting any place, okay, folks? But, you know, especially if you've already been hit by a bad one, you know, obviously, you know, just makes you think of them all the more. But Clinton, of course, is along Highway 65. Of course, Boone County is too. I should have stated this detail. Highway 65 runs from Little Rock up to Springfield, Missouri, and it's in between Conway and Branson that we're basically talking about. And but shifting gears on weather, we do have more tornadoes to mention. This is down in Texas earlier in the week. We had a confirmed tornado, according to David, an EF1 in South Young County, and also an EF1 in Lake Bridgeport in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. This is Wise County. The National Weather Service in Fort Worth confirmed that one as an EF1. So obviously this has been an active week for weather. It will continue to be because we're in that season now. And just to mention, folks, we're going to also be doing a special on tornado preparedness in the coming weeks. So be looking for that. It won't be out in the near term because we haven't produced it yet. Obviously, we got to plan it out as well. But we'll be producing that special not too long from now, and hopefully when it does come out that you'll watch it and obviously apply some of the things we mentioned that might help save your life.
And quick mention as well, the one by Abilene, Texas, on the north side that went not too far from Dyess Air Force Base and tracked across the north side of Abilene and tracked up toward Albany, Texas. That was confirmed by the National Weather Service in the Abilene-San Angelo area as an EF2. And that was from the same supercell that produced what apparently was a significant tornado by Sterling City, Texas, which is to the west of San Angelo. And again, as of this recording, we don't know the EF rating and everything, and I'm not going to speculate on the EF rating, but when I was tracking this storm, Jonathan, and I was using the correlation coefficient, which for those that don't know what correlation coefficient is, or CC, that's what detects the non-meteorological objects like trees and bricks and buildings and cars and different things like that. And Jonathan, when I was tracking it, I saw large chunks of debris from the north side of Sterling City, Texas, that was being picked up by CC. So if I had to guess, Jonathan, that was probably a pretty significant tornado. We just don't know the EF rating because I imagine right now they're probably still surveying the damage as of this recording. And as we mentioned with the Van Buren County one, we will keep everybody apprised. And as soon as we get EF ratings from both of those, we will update those accordingly after this podcast gets released.
Alrighty, so on that note, folks, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the weather segment here. David, you'll be back at the end of the show to close things out. And also, folks, just to tell you that coming up next, I will be covering headlines and also what I think is really going on, because I don't think it's just a virus that's going around. I also think there's something else in play here behind the scenes. I'm going to tell you more about that just ahead here on the Citizen Report. David, we'll see you again at the end of the show. And thanks for staying with us here on the Citizen Report. I'm Jonathan Shannon. On this headline segment, we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to still have the rundown of headlines, but I'm going to add a little bit more context, and particularly some of what I think might be going on behind the scenes of current events. Again, this is the kind of thing where I just kind of present some of the circumstantial stuff, and you're going to have to be willing to come to your own conclusions. But so this headline segment, I'll just say right up front, is a little bit different than normal. A quick housekeeping note, the part with David and I both before and after this segment was taped last night on Friday, March 20th, 2020. I'm taping this headline segment here at just after 9 p.m. Eastern here on this Saturday, March 21st, 2020. So just a quick note of that, because there have been some changes. Obviously, some of the headlines that I might read to you are going to be a little bit newer than yesterday, so I thought I'd clarify that before we get started. But on that note, first of all, I'm going to give you the rundown of the headlines, and then I'm going to get to what I think might be really going on behind the scenes. Again, what I think. And you're just going to have to come to your own conclusions. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, let's take a look at the headlines here from johnbwellsnews.com. Again, an excellent news aggregate site, excellent alternative to the Drudge Report. If you aren't already checking out johnbwellsnews.com, I highly recommend you do so. On that note, let's get to these headlines. From KSL, 5.7 magnitude earthquake hits near Magna, shakes entire Wasatch, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Wasatch Front. Obviously, this is referring to the earthquake in Utah the other day. And I should just clarify here that these headlines are valid as of Thursday. So obviously there's some headlines here that are going to be a little bit outdated at this point. But obviously enough of these are still current, so I'm going to still give some of these headlines to you. Continuing on here. Earthquake updates. Red Cross offers resources to Utahns impacted by earthquake. Also a headline from KSL. From Fox 5 New York, gas prices could hit 99 cents in some states due to coronavirus and supplies, expert says. And I'll just add this. I was actually just over the border in South Carolina, literally just an hour or two ago. And I paid personally $1.70. Obviously, there was that one case where actually gas, I think, hit 99 cents. Or so in Kentucky, and obviously the gas station sold out of gas, understandably. Continuing on here, trendingviews.co. What's up with this? Reporter in full biosuit, but camera guy in street clothes. See, folks? You see what I mean? You see what I mean? If you don't believe me, just go online and look at it. Just Google it. I mean, I don't think it's in this country because there's a sign behind him that would seem to be like a European do not enter, kind of like the Europe's version of do not enter sign, where it's just the kind of the generic circle, circular sign with a kind of a rectangle, white rectangle in the middle. You get my drift? Well, anyways, yes. So a reporter was basically in a full biosuit, a blue colored one. The camera guy, just like a jacket or something, just normal attire, I would say. So that's why, folks, you got to separate fact. There is a threat with this virus, but there's no reason to fear about it. Because again, the media, they stand to benefit from the fear mongering. Of course, they'll say to your face they're not looking to put you into fear, but consider the product that's being churned out. Consider how fearful certain people are, and that should tell you a lot right there. Continuing on here, from the Epoch Times, Barr says FBI probing if foreign government responsible for HHS, I guess that means Health Human Services, cyber attack. From Washington Free Beacon, Ilhan Omar is her new husband's biggest client, public records show. From HNewsWire.com, banks are going to drown in an ocean of defaults. From Zero Hedge, organized crime, robberies by suspects wearing virus masks reported across the East Coast. From True Pundit, pranksters replace Google's Democratic Party donkey logo with a rat. Yeah, I actually saw a screenshot of that. That was pretty. You don't see that happen too often, I'll put it that way. From the EpochTimes.com, Trump invokes Korean War-era Defense Production Act to fight CCP virus. Now, I think normally I would probably keep going a little ways at least with the headlines, but I think that's a good one to stop on because I'm going to segue from that to talking more about what I think is really going on behind the scenes, and the operative word of that phrase is what I think. What I think. Because a lot of this I simply cannot prove, but I do think it's important enough that I would much rather, because the news is breaking so fast, there's just no telling what's going to happen in this next week. So I feel like at this point I better tell you what I think, more of what I think than I might normally would, only because I think that you need to know this. And I'm going to be quite blunt here. I think that there are going to be mass arrests in the next foreseeable future, I'll say. I don't know the timeline. I don't even know to the exact scope of it. But it's becoming more and more plausible, I'll say, that this coronavirus thing was I'm trying not to go off into the I'm trying not to go down a rabbit hole here, but I venture to say I believe this is a bioweapon. I do not believe this is a naturally occurring virus. And again, what I think, not what I know, what I think, what I believe to be the case, that coronavirus is a bioweapon. How that bioweapon was engineered and how that came about, and whether this might have been a naturally occurring virus that was agitated, so to speak, to make it worse, I don't know. I don't even, and for all I know, it could be naturally occurring. But I'm saying what I'm thinking is that, okay? Because, and again, we're operating on a different sort of reality right now. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to say all this, because we live in a very unique time right now that I think that it would be better, you would be better served, I would not be doing as much of a disservice, if you will, if I just told you up front what I think and just allow you to come to your own conclusions. I tell you right here and now, what I'm fixing to say might be totally baloney, okay? But it might be totally true as well. And on that note, let me switch gears here to tell you about some, what I would say, circumstantial evidence, and you can begin to draw a picture in your mind of what I think might be going on. And I felt like I needed to kind of put all of that, that introduction to what I'm fixing to say here. I have in front of me a list of 21 names. And these 21 names are the names of recent, very prominent, major company leaders that have recently resigned, okay? Number one, of course, Microsoft's Bill Gates resigned on March 13th. Number two, UPS David Abney resigned on March 12th. Number three, Disney CEO Bob Iger resigned February 25th. Number four, MasterCard CEO Ajay Banga resigned February 25th. Number five, Salesforce CEO Keith Block resigned February 25th. Number six, Uber Eats VP or Vice President Jason Drug or something, Droigi maybe. I really don't know how to pronounce that. Resigned February 25th. Number seven, Outdoor Voices CEO Tyler Haney resigned February 25th. Number 8, Consortium Cannabis CEO Jose Hidalgo resigned February 25th. Number 9, St. Luke's Hospital CEO Christine, I'm not sure if that's Candio or Gandio, but resigned February 25th. And that, just to clarify, that's one of St. Louis's biggest hospitals. Number 10, JCPenney CMO Sean Ginsick, maybe? February 25th, resigned February 25th. Number 11, Bowers & Wilkins CEO Gregory Lee resigned February 24th. Number 12, Bowers & Wilkins CFO Gideon Yu resigned February 24th. Number 13, L Brand CEO Les Wexner resigned February 20th. Number 14, Credit Suzy CEO Tidjane Thyme or something, February 13th. Number 15, MGM CEO Jim Murren resigned February 12th. Number 16, Aurora Cannabis CEO Terry Booth resigned February 6th. Number 17, LinkedIn CEO Jeff Weiner resigned February 5th. Number 18, Hulu CEO Randy Freer resigned January 31st. Number 19, IBM CEO Ginny Rometty resigned January 30th. Number 20, Match.com CEO Mandy Ginsberg resigned on January 29th. And number 21, International Airlines Group, or IAG CEO Willie Walsh resigned on January 9th. Now, most of these people have been in position of power in those positions of power for at least a number of years. At least, like at minimum, I'm seeing like, the lowest one that I see here is 2 months. Next closest one I see it right off the bat is 9 months. But you also have Bill Gates that was there forever. Disney CEO was there for 15 years. LinkedIn CEO was there for 11 years. So, I mean, where all of these are related or just some of them or not at all. I'm just putting it out there and I'm inviting you to draw your own conclusions, to think for yourself, and to begin to kind of formulate your own conclusions here. And on that note, let me tell you also, now I have not independently confirmed this, but this is from Reddit, and this is an account claiming to be This is Bill Gates, and the title of this thread is called I'm Bill Gates, co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, AMA about COVID-19. And this one of his messages said, quote, "The question of whether businesses should keep going is tricky. Certainly, food supply and the health system, we still need water, electricity, and the internet. Supply chains for critical things need to be maintained. Countries are still figuring out what to keep running." Now pay attention here. This is what he says right here that's pretty disturbing. Quote, "Eventually, we will have some digital certificates, let me continue, to show who has recovered or been tested recently, or when we have a vaccine, who has received it." Now, again, Bill Gates just resigned from Microsoft. I can't tell you why he resigned. I just don't know. But I don't know about you, but I find that pretty disturbing. Again, we're not supposed to live in fear, of course, but we're human, and we do have emotions, and I must admit, that's pretty disturbing to suggest that there's a thing he wants called digital certificates to see who's been vaccinated and who hasn't. And I'm telling you, folks, I don't know, but my theory is this, that there's two alternating realities going on right now. You've got the white hat, patriot, good guys operating. And parallel to that, you have the deep state black hats, or gray hats maybe, you might venture to include that, the bad guys on the other side. You know, you have the forces of good, the forces of evil, and they're going against each other. I personally think, and this is my hypothesis here, I think that there are sealed indictments, and you can call me crazy, but personally, I believe that there are a number of sealed indictments, and that we're going to see something big happen here shortly, in the coming days, weeks, or months. I don't know when. QAnon, I mean, he has said in the past, disinformation is necessary. And he also says optics are very important. So I think that President Trump, when he says that, basically he's kind of speaking in wartime language, referring to the virus. Now, I don't know about you, but when I heard that, when he basically said, you know, we will defeat this virus, and I'm gonna, as I talk here, I'm gonna try to pull up what he said so I can get that exactly right, what Trump said. But in essence, what I believe might be going on is that right now we are seeing the build up to the sealed indictments becoming unsealed, and I cannot confirm any of this right now. But I do believe that you're going to see a number of players get indicted, and you're going to see a lot of things change. Personally, I think that Trump is leading us down the path towards becoming a country with full sovereignty restored to our currency, because in case you didn't know, we have something called the Federal Reserve System, the Federal Reserve Bank, and that is neither federal nor a reserve for us. It is a globalist cabal. It is. It is. It just is. It's not money that's printed. It is basically debt instruments, if you want to think of it that way. It is not backed by anything than the promise of the American government, the federal government, to honor it. And yet, if you look at it, it says Federal Reserve Note. So by definition, it is a Federal Reserve Note. And I think that what we're heading towards is Trump is going to eventually put us on a gold standard. Now, how that will take shape, I don't know, but I do believe that's on its way. But I do believe there is a good chance we'll continue to see volatility leading up to that, with the markets, for example. Now, I just pulled up what Trump said back on March 18th, and I want to read to you what he said. And pay attention and remember, keep in the back of your mind what I have already said as I read this. Quote, and again, this is Donald Trump speaking. Quote, "I want all Americans to understand we are at war with an invisible enemy, but that enemy is no match for the spirit and resolve of the American people. ... Now, I want you to think for a moment what he's saying here. I want you to begin to try to put a picture together in your mind. Now, supposedly he's speaking to the virus, the coronavirus that is. But I want you to remember something very, very interesting. He says, but that enemy is no match for the spirit and resolve of the American people. What does that seem to suggest? He's personifying, if he was talking about the virus, let's just assume for argument's sake, that he was talking about the coronavirus. I think he's actually, in this case, talking about the deep state. Okay? Now, again, all I'm saying, think for yourself, okay? But I'm just putting out there what I believe might be going on. Now, remember that Q has said, if you've been following Q, or paying attention to Q posts for any length of time, he refers to this, all of this, as the storm. Now, listen very carefully to, of all people, the Irish Prime Minister. Listen very carefully to what he says. Quote. Well, actually, I'll do better than that. I'm going to try to play this directly through my microphone here if I can. This is what the Prime Minister, which is the head of government for Ireland, this is what he says.
This is the calm before the storm, before the surge. And when it comes, and it will come, never will so many ask so much of so few.
This is the calm before the storm. Now, to me, that would seem to be plausible. Again, I believe the deep state is far and wide. For example, if you listen to X22 report, Dave has done a really good job with conveying and doing his research. And what we know is the deep state is far and wide. It's not just an American issue. It is a global issue. There are deep states in just about every country, as far as I'm concerned. And I think that what we're seeing here is we're seeing a buildup to the takedown of the deep state. We know it was coming, at least on some level. And it seems plausible that this event is when they're going to take us all down. Think about what the deep state does. When they're cornered, they do false flags. Now, false flags does not mean that the event is fake, okay? But the intentions or how, for example, the media might report that this person that carried out, for example, a terrorist attack, that the person might have had a certain motive for doing it, when in reality it was quite something different. Personally, what I perceive false flags to be, it is basically where you have a situation which doesn't notwithstanding whether or not it's fake, it might be completely real, but the background of the story is not what's being reported. And in fact, so when you see like a school shooting, for example, the school shooting probably is just as real, or at least real on some level. It does not mean it's fake when you call it a false flag, for example, but it just means that the way the media is reporting it is not the way it was. Now, Trump said that basically that it's nobody's fault unless you go back to the source. Now, what does that suggest? Is he saying that the virus originated through some deliberate act? Could be. And I think now they want to say Trump is racist for calling it the Chinese virus. No, he's not racist. No, not at all. In fact, why? If that's the case, if he was a racist for saying that, then why aren't they calling just about every other person racist for calling the West Nile virus the West Nile virus? Or why are they not calling people out for calling Mexican food, Chinese food, Italian food, etc.? Folks, I'm telling you, you've got to stop. If you watch the mainstream media, fine. But always have a filter in your head, what you could call discernment, to say, to filter through information from the mainstream media. Okay? And I think personally, and I can't prove this, but I think that Trump might be sending a message. Now, I don't have the soundbite in front of me, but Trump did say, basically, the virus is nobody's fault unless you go back to the source. Most people overlooked that. It was just like, kind of went over a lot of people's heads. I think he was sending a message right there. I think the deep state put this out there, and how that happened, I really just don't know. Okay, but let me wrap this up. I personally think, and I'm gonna in the headline segment in future episodes, I'm gonna try to trickle out more information. I'm not gonna just dump it all on you in this one, but understand there are a number of people at play here in the deep state. And actually, to kind of put a bow on this, let me tell you this. This is from the half brother, I believe, of Obama, and I believe his name. Do bear with me one moment. Yes, there we go. This is from March 20th, so just yesterday at 10:31 p.m. Malik Obama at Obama Malik, and keep in mind as I read this that QAnon has referred to all of this entire operation as the storm, the takedown of the deep state. Malik Obama says, "The storm is coming, eh?" EH question mark. I think he was sending a message right there. And keep in mind, Malik Obama, now I'm going to be very careful what I'm fixing to say here, because this is going to really push some buttons with certain people. But Malik Obama back in 2017, again, keep in mind, this is Malik Obama's half-brother, okay? He bears the same last name as Obama. He's the half-brother of Obama. Back in 2017, also on Twitter, on March 9th, 2017 to be exact, he posted a picture with the caption, "Shirley, period. What's this?" question mark. And below, it shows a picture titled Coast Province General Hospital and whatever town it's referring to. And then it says British Protectorate of Kenya, Certificate of Birth. And it shows the certificate number. And then it shows child bearing and I think it says the name, Barack Hussein Obama II. And then it's got everything below that. Now, I can't prove this. Now, people have said that that's been proved as false. It may or may not be false. I don't know. But I can tell you this. I find it very interesting that just last night, he posted, "The storm is coming, yeah?" And then you go back to what the Irish Prime Minister has said. This is the calm before the storm. And there are some pictures of military trucks in Los Angeles, I believe. I believe there was also something may have been, I don't know if it was Baltimore or New York or both. I'm not exactly sure. But I believe that to go back to what I was referring to about the false flag situation, I believe that these orders that were sent down to have people basically, these restaurants close, I believe that a lot of this, and I don't know if all of it is for this reason, but I do believe at least some of this has to do with trying to minimize if the deep state tried to do a false flag, in other words, a terrorist attack for with different motives than the media would report it. You don't have a lot of large gatherings, okay? And I think that it's plausible if you put all of what I just been saying together here. I think it's plausible that what we're seeing is the build-up, the final countdown to the takedown of the deep state. Some have even said that the internet, the TV might go out for like 3 days. There's something called the 3 days of darkness where they may have to take down the internet, phone. And I'll just tell you this, it's my hope that the Citizen Report can continue uninterrupted, but if for some reason there was a nationwide or at least a regional outage of the internet, don't panic. Understand that may very well be the Patriots basically blindsiding the deep state as they take them down. And I think that we'll have to see how this all plays out. But I do believe it's interesting that QAnon did say, and I don't have the quote exactly in front of me, but I can remember the essence of it, where he basically said that Obama, once all has been revealed about, basically, I'm guessing he's referring to treason charges, that Obama will claim Kenyan citizenship as a way to escape. And remember one final thing, what QAnon is. And by the way, you can look at QAnon posts at qmap.pub. That's a website, a web address, and I'll spell it for you. It's qmap.pub. And QAnon is supposedly someone higher up in the government with a Q level clearance. I personally think, as do others, that it's not one person, but it's a group working as one, as Q. And in the past, there have been posts that are signed instead of with just Q, it's Q+. Q+ is supposed to be Donald Trump himself. At least that's what it seems to be. So my point being is this. We might just be seeing something building up in the final countdown to something going on here, a major operation. And do understand, if things happen, don't panic. The Patriots are in control. We will survive. We will thrive. And America, I think the best is yet to come. Just like Donald Trump said, the best is yet to come. He keeps saying that, and I think it's more than just one reason that he says that. And I think that the gold standard is coming back to this country, where instead of a fiat printer press kind of currency, we actually have a restoration of a gold-backed currency. But we'll have to see how this all plays out. If you have any questions about what I just said, feel free to reach out to me on any of the platforms I'm on, or send me a direct message however you wish, and I'll do my best to help you out. I'm always interested to helping somebody. I'm not that great with articulating Q-related stuff, but I'll certainly do the best I can, whether if it's QAnon stuff or any news-related item. I will certainly do my best to help you. And with that, thank you for listening to the headline segment here on the Citizen Report. Now let's go back to David Heller and myself, Jonathan Shannon, for the close of the show. And David Heller joins me again here on the Citizen Report. And David, just tell viewers how they can find you on Twitter.
My Twitter is at David_Heller9. That is where you can find all the latest information regarding media merger news, any sports happenings that comes up, which right now there's not a lot because everything has been postponed because of COVID-19 and so forth. So it's at David Heller _ in between the two, my first and last name, and the number 9. And that is where they can find me.
Alrighty, and folks, you can find me. I'm Jonathan Shannon, and I have the Twitter handle, The Jonathan News. I'll say that again. It's at The Jonathan News. And just a quick reminder of our website. It's thecitizenreport.weebly.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. On YouTube, I actually go by my full name, and that's Jonathan Ryan Shannon. So do check us out on those various platforms, and thank you for watching the Citizen Report. Of course, this has been a pretty long-winded one. Lots that it's just impossible to cover everything, and we will do our best to bring you as factual information as possible, as always. And David, thank you so much for joining us again here on the Citizen Report. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, everybody.
Have a great weekend, and we'll see you again next week.
All righty. Good night, everybody.
The Citizen Report is a production of New Shannon Media. All content protected under copyright.